Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Music Den. I'm your host, Armando Venditti. Hoping you guys are having a great day. And above all else, that you are looking after yourselves and one another. Ladies and gentlemen, before I get into this yet another fantastic episode that we're about to bring you, I would like to welcome back to the channel the one and only Mr. Jim Bricker. How's it going, Jim?
I'm doing pretty well, Armando. Thanks again for having me on to bloviate and opine and make a nuisance of myself.
There you go. Well, you're never a nuisance, believe me. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here uh, to discuss King Crimson, right?
Drop in, babies.
Yes, we'd like to welcome you to in the 2014 Court of King Crimson. Now, specifically, we are talking live albums. And the part of this episode, or points from this episode, will tie into an episode I did with Bill Schuster that we did a few weeks back called Going Live, where we talked about the necessity of live albums, single disc versus double disc albums, etc. Also, the necessity for live albums, who actually buys live albums, and again, which live albums are in fact actual live albums. Now, um, there's a lot to unpack here, ladies and gentlemen, with King Crimson. Uh, King Crimson in 2015 released a live album called Live at the Orpheum Theater, or Live at the Orpheum, sorry. And it is a 7-track LP recorded on the tour that they did in 2014. My good friend Jim here pointed me to the DGM.com, DGMlive.com website, sorry, which features a number of live performances that King Crimson did in 2014. One of the venues that they performed at was the Warfield Theatre in San Francisco. Now, the Warfield Theater is a venue that seats 2,300 people, so a pretty small venue compared to some of the other places that they played. And they played 2 nights at the Warfield Theater in 2014, October 3rd and 4th. And the good folks at GD, oh God, sorry guys.
Discipline Global
Oh, hold
Mobile,
on.
which is
Yeah,
DGM Live.
DGM Live, the good folks at DGMlive.com have uploaded these concerts for you to listen to and enjoy. And we will put the link down in the description below so you can access these shows. And they're quite inexpensive. I downloaded them and I paid in Canadian dollars 29.99 for 2 shows. So this is quite good actually and quite unique. Now,
May I insert a couple of
you,
comments about
yes,
DGM? So
yes,
DGM Live was started by Robert Fripp and David Singleton uh, in, I think, the late 90s. And basically, this is the site for purchasing and downloading King Crimson recordings, Robert Fripp recordings, uh, ancillary stuff that Fripp was involved with
yeah,
over the years. So they've got King Crimson shows on that site from '69 just about all the way to present.
yeah,
This past December is when they finally uploaded um, complete shows from the 2014 tour, which was their kind of reunion tour. Fripp had a vision for King Crimson to get back together in 2013,
yeah,
and that vision was a 7-member band with 3 drummers, and with the 3 drummers acting as the front line, and the 2 guitarists, the bassist, and the sax player in the back line on the risers. So there was a lot about this Crimson that was unique
yeah,
in terms of just how they were set up. And, double drumming has never been I should say it's always been around for Crimson, but for three drummers and to really create arrangements that sort of highlighted kind of the percussive power of the band was completely new. And they just took this thing to a whole new level. So yeah, all 19 shows, I believe it is from 2014, are available for purchase and download at
On
DGM.
gmail live.com.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we focused on these two in San Francisco, which would have been my local shows, neither of
Yeah.
which I went to, and I'm kicked myself almost daily over that.
Yeah. Just a quick question. Was Pat Mastelotto in the show, like in the band at this point?
Yeah. In fact,
Because
Mastelato,
yeah,
aside from Fripp, he's like the second longest serving member of King Crimson.
okay. Okay, because in my notes, he's not listed on the website as being part of the show.
Oh, that's an error then. But yeah, he's one of the three
Okay.
drummers in the
Okay,
front.
because appearing at the show, ladies and gentlemen, you have Robert Fripp on guitar and keyboards, Yako Yasik, I hope I say that correctly, on guitars and vocals, Mel Collins on sax and flute, Tony Levin on bass, stick and backing vocals, Gavin Harrison on acoustic and electric percussion, and Bill Riflin on acoustic and electric percussion and keyboards. And Pat Mastelotto was not listed on the website as being part of the band, which,
Well, that's an error. Yeah, he
yeah.
was he was
So,
the third percussionist of
yes,
terror.
because I remember watching the recent documentary on In the Court of the Crimson King, uh, you know, and he was involved with the band. So,
Hmm.
this include Pat Mastelotto, ladies and gentlemen, as on acoustic and electric percussion. So we have listened to both shows, and I've also listened to, as well as Jim here has listened to the Live at the Orpheum show, and we're going to discuss this now. You said that you missed this show when it was coming through San Francisco, right? What happened?
I missed all the Crimson shows when they came through the Bay Area for 2014 through 2021. Missed them all.
What happened? I gotta
I
ask.
had health I had health issues.
Okay.
I
Okay.
had persistent health issues which couldn't be helped.
Okay. Valid. Valid. Okay. All right. So, how shall we tackle this, kind sir, in terms of your views
Well,
on?
well, let's start with the Orpheum just to kind of set the ground rules because
Yes.
that is something that's been more readily available and people may have discovered it on their own.
Yes.
So Orpheum, the release was kind of a surprise to Crimheads because it was released the January following the tour that ended in October, so it was quick. It
Yeah.
came out really fast, so people were like, "Oh, great, this is awesome." Unfortunately, that joy went away once people started hearing it. Um, First of all, it's a very brief album. It's only 40 minutes, and the Crimson shows around this time were about 2 hours. So
Not
if
longer.
you yeah, so if you take away the walk-on music that they have here, it's really only a six-song album. But even there, the song selection is, it makes people salivate. One More Red Nightmare, The Letters, Sailor's Tale, Starless. I mean, One More Red Nightmare had never been played live by Crimson, never until this tour. And so people were really itching to hear how it sounded. Um, and on this mix, it didn't really sound that great. The whole album is really, really quiet, and you really have to turn it up to get, proper volume out of it. And the mix is just really strange. If I understand right, different people mix different parts and they kind of put it together,
Yeah.
and it just doesn't sound well balanced at all. I wish I knew technically how to describe the issues better, but yeah, it was really lacking.
Yeah. Yeah. I listened to um the Orpheum show. Um, 7 tracks, like six. my one question is, what were they thinking? Um,
Yeah.
you don't get the full range of the shows, uh, compiled into like basically a six track album. Um, there's something lacking in, in
Yes.
in this release. Um, and it's quite weird because or odd because the power, the essence of Crimson and the sheer power of the band come through on the two Warfield performances in San Francisco, right?
Oh yeah.
Um, I mean, yeah, I mean, first of all, just to put there's no communication between the band and the audience during these two performances. Not that I
No.
could hear, because most bands, when they're talking, they like to interplay with the audience, they interact, and, our next number is this. None of that, you know. Um, I just, yeah. Oh boy. In terms of the Warfield performances, it starts off with the walk-on piece, the threshold soundscape and intro, um, which to me is just establishing mood, you
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
for what's to come. And then they launch into Lyrics, Tongues, and Aspect part one. Um,
Yeah, for the performance on the third. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, and it should be pointed out that for each performance, they change up the track listing, for the shows. So every night is different.
Yep.
You're pretty much kept on your toes for the entire night, right?
Yeah, and,
Um,
and it's essentially the same tracks, just sort of reassembled in their order.
yeah,
The show on the fourth does have one additional song um, than the previous night, the third.
yeah.
And then, as far as I know, the show on the fourth captures, I think, all the tracks that they played on the tour, with the exception of one kind of improvised piece, which they called Hoodoo. And I think the hoodoo was kind of like a conducted piece, like an improvised conducted piece, much like what Zappa would do with his band. Um,
Mhm.
there's not a lot of recordings that exist of it, but I think the very first show in Albany on this tour
Yeah.
has a version of Hoodoo on it. And there might be some of the other New York shows as well.
Okay. Okay. What I mean, how can I put this? The only way I can describe these shows is organized chaos because there's a lot of experimentation, I mean, although the song structures are there, you know, um, within that song structure, you have a lot going on, a lot of experimentation, solo here and there, just going for it. The rule is for these releases, there are no rules. Do you know what I mean?
It would seem that way. I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
there's parts of the Crimson of any Crimson track that are highly structured and organized, or else like the whole piece would fall apart. But within there, there's a framework for just people just to blow and
yeah.
go off on their own. There was a description that they came up with, I think is in 2017, talking about this version of Crim, and they said it had. This version had the power of a rock band, the precision of an orchestra, and the freedom of a jazz band. And
That's an accurate description. Yeah,
yeah, and I think the freedom, I think the first two elements are definitely well represented here on these shows. They got even more free as they went on their touring history with this last configuration of Crim, especially like the 2017-18 shows. They really started to stretch out, and you would see versions of like the letters that I think the version here lasts about 5 minutes. There were versions that lasted about 10. just because they would really stretch out that improvised section. Um, Similar with Schizoid Man,
Yeah,
Easy Money, which is another tune that was not on this tour, but
yeah,
once they started performing it again, it would become incredibly elastic.
yeah. You're right. The letters on the first in the first show lasted 5 minutes and 19 seconds. So yeah, improv and mood has a lot to do with it. What I mean, I gotta ask you too, as a fan, like again, as I'm still a newbie compared to you in terms of um, my how can you put like my interest in Crimson? What
Mhm.
drew you to Crimson in the first place? I know you mentioned it before, but enlighten
Well,
us.
you kind of go back to the 80s version, with Bruford and Levin and Ballou and Fripp. And
Yeah,
that's when I was introduced to them.
yeah,
And um, Three of a Perfect Pair was when I finally sort of went, oh, okay, this is pretty amazing. And then I heard Discipline, and it's like, okay, show's over. This is, you know, just stuff that's on a complete other level.
yeah,
As I started to work backwards through their discography, that's when I discovered how really powerful, they could be. And this was like in the early 90s. So around that time, they had released the Frame by Frame box set, their first big 4-disc box, the Great Deceiver live box, which just focused on the 73 74 band,
yeah.
which was a third of it was improv. And so that was just a whole nother level of playing and amazingness.
Mind
And
blowing.
then, yeah, absolutely. And then around that time, kind of fast forward to 1994, Crimson was getting back together again, and this was the double trio with the '80s band plus Trey Gunn and Pat Mastelotto. So
Yeah,
I was kind of in on the ground floor of the Vroom and Thrack bands,
yeah.
and I saw those shows 3 times. Every swing through the Bay Area, I was able to catch those,
Good Lord, you are a fan. My God.
and
Okay.
it was amazing. I mean, second, no, first row at the Zellerbach in Berkeley just about blew my head off.
You saw them at the Zellerbach?
I did.
Oh, sweet Jesus. Okay, I need a cigarette after that statement. My God.
They played the Warfield, the
Yeah.
Zellerbach, and the UC Berkeley Greek Theater in the summer of '96, and those were all the shows that I saw.
It's funny you mentioned discipline that you got into the band roughly around that time because that's when I was 11 at the time. And that's when I first heard of the band. And, because I mean, for the staunch, how can I say this? For the staunch Crimson fan that knew them from like Islands and In the Court of the Crimson King and Lark's Tongues and Aspect, discipline was considered to be way out there in terms of
Yep,
what they were doing. It was more percussive, more beat oriented, pardon the pun, use of the word beat because of the name
yep.
of the
New
album.
wavy,
Yeah,
you
more
know.
new wavy. Yeah, that kind of, I guess you'd say post-punk, new wave kind of a feel to it. And
Right.
again, rhythmically inclined. So that was what drew me to them, or it got me what I noticed about them at that point. I had
Hmm.
no idea that they existed prior to that, being an 11-year-old. How the hell was I going to know that? But
Well,
yeah,
sure.
um, and just to give you a bit of background, I dove into the band, um, I just over the past couple of years, just was starting the channel and
Yeah.
doing the shows. But yeah, very interesting, very interesting. Um,
Yeah, and this band, like you were saying, is just absolutely furious, and
oh my
there's just it's a
God.
cacophony on stage. But one of the other great things about this tour is that if you were, a lifelong fan of the band, this was like a dream come true. There's points in Sid Smith's book, in the Court of the Crimson King,
I have
where
that.
he talks about, Pat Mastelotto, kind of walking down the stairs with Fripp to their very first performance, and Pat turning to Robert, he said, "Robert, you're going to make a lot of people very, very happy. And it's true, they were ecstatic. I mean, to hear Lark's Tongues, I mean, I kind of went through the track list on the October 4th show. There's tracks there that go all the way back to 1969. There is stuff that had never been performed live at all,
Well,
and there's a good handful of stuff that had never been performed since like 1972.
okay, uh, would I put you on the spot if we did talk about the track listing for the October 4th show?
Let's do it. I got it right here. You want
Okay,
me to
let's
kind
go
of
for it. I mean,
talk
again,
through it?
yeah, just not, we don't, I don't want, we don't have to go into, you know, a paragraph for each track, but there's
Right.
20 tracks here, okay? And
Mhm.
again, it starts off with the threshold soundscape and improv intro, um, the walk-on intro. But as we said before, ladies and gentlemen, the track listing, the set list is changed, okay?
Yes.
And the time durations are different. So you're not getting, I'm getting more into this, like more enthusiastic as I talk about, it. You're not getting the same show each night. It is like a completely different beast that you're dealing with in terms of the music that's there. So, I mean, they go from the intro, they launch into level five. Okay. Um,
Which is about as hard and, kneecap breaking a song as Crimson has ever done.
like Christ. I mean, like seriously. I mean, and then they go into, Lark's tongues and aspects. So, I mean, I'll give you the floor in terms of the track listing here. So please take it away.
Yeah, so
What
so
piqued your
Lark's
interest?
Tongues, yeah, was a song from the 72, 73, 74 era. This is one that hasn't been started since, or hadn't been played since 1973, excuse me. And it starts off with this very gentle percussive kind of looping and lines that the three drummers are doing, which
Yeah,
is much like they did on the initial album. And there were people who were just kind of, to talk to folks who went to those shows, said you could hear a pin drop in the theater to listen to these guys doing, because they're like, the audience is kind of on their pins and needles saying, oh my God, are they really going to go there?
yeah,
And then once it starts with the guitar, dun, 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 and people start losing their minds
yeah.
because they know what's coming. And again, it's this piece that's much like level five, just goes for the throat. It's,
It's
a lead pipe to your kneecaps. It's just brutal. And the
in my mind,
dynamics in this song are, poof, all over the
yeah,
place.
all over the charts. But like what I have in my notes here for Lark's tongues and aspect part one, very rhythmic and percussive, multi-section, and pure experimentation. It's like you're sitting there and you're like, what am I hearing? It's like a sonic explosion that goes off, you know what I mean? With the
Yeah.
song. Um, yeah, it's just unreal. It's unreal. And then they
Yeah.
go into pictures of a city. Uh,
Yeah, which is much, again, another one that hadn't been performed since 72.
yeah,
It feels a lot like 21st Century Schizoid Man in
yeah,
terms of how the
destruction.
elements of the song are constructed. Yeah. But yeah, it's another one of those things where it's like, who'da thunk that they'd unearth this thing from 40 years prior and trot
Exactly.
it out, and just, again, that's like they'll destroy all comers. This was
Exactly.
There's a
Exactly.
reason why the guys in Tool like King Crimson, because it has that level of ferocity to it.
Yeah, and there's a reason why like Danny carries and beat. I mean,
Beat.
yes,
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 exactly.
yes, yes. Please, ladies and gentlemen, check out our Jim's review of the Beat Show, back in September. It was
Steve Vai
wonderful.
did. He liked it.
Yes, he did. Steve I did check it out and he liked it, so whatever,
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen. No, please continue. The floor is yours, my dear boy. Go ahead.
So, so just to kind of talk, generally, the whole set list of the 20 tracks is kind of a very balanced mix of classics that hadn't been played in a long time,
Yeah.
some of the stalwarts of Crimson from 2008, the early 2000s and the 90s and whatnot, and
Yeah.
then some stuff that's just brand freaking new. So from the classic standpoint, we talked about Lark's Tongue One, Pictures of a City, um, One More Red Nightmare, which had never been performed live before.
Yeah.
Um, the Letters and Sailor's Tale, both from the Islands album, again, hadn't been played live since 72.
Yeah.
Um, Starless, which hadn't been played live since 74.
Yeah.
So it's been a long time since people had heard that.
Yeah.
And then they finish, the shows generally finished off with Schizoid Man,
Yeah.
which, was originally done in 1969, but they hadn't played it live in its full King Crimson guise until since 1996.
Yeah.
Project Two did kind of a cocktail lounge version of Schizoid Man at one show. That's pretty fun to hear.
Okay.
So it's worth checking out, but it's not like the full Schizoid Man.
Yeah.
So of this list of about 20 tracks, there's your seven classics right there. Um, the the new tracks, um, two of those come from an album that was kind of classified as a King Crimson project, which was called Collins, Jacek, and Fripp, which is Mel Collins, Jacko Jacek, and Robert Fripp. Basically, they were improvised their way on the fly to sort of creating these songs. The
Okay.
album also includes Gavin Harrison and Tony Levin, so it's basically this form of King Crimson, but just minus a couple of members and um, in studio, created, remotely and improvised a lot of it. So
Okay.
those two tunes are Scarcity of Miracles, which is the name of the album, if I recall right, and a song called The Light of Day. Um, the Light of Day is the tune that was not played on the third.
It was played on the fourth. That's right.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
The two other pieces that are new were kind of developed by Gavin Harrison. And if people are not familiar with Gavin Harrison, oh
Oh,
baby,
God. Yes. Yeah.
he's playing 64th notes in a lot of these songs with this just it's like smooth like glass. And it's just I mean, it's just
He's a
amazing the
beast.
fills that he rips in there. Yeah.
He's a beast. He and
Um
Phil are a beast on the drums and Pat. I mean,
and
that
Pat.
being said, I mean, for as free form, and then I'll shut up. I promise you, Jim. For as free form as experimental as these pieces are, they're locked into one another. The drummers are locked into one another. Like there's like no question. Like
Yeah.
you know, but you know, I will shut up. The
Well,
floor is yours.
much like the way that the '80s crim um, had these interlocking guitar parts,
Yeah,
there's interlocking drum parts, and if the guys are not attentive to one another, and if they lose their place,
it can all fall
structure is going
apart.
to fall apart.
Yeah,
Now, having said that, there are a few times in these two concerts where things go slightly off the rails, just slightly, never enough to like derail the whole thing.
yeah.
But you can hear a couple of missed cues and flub notes and whatever. But that's live performance, kids. I mean, that's what you get when you buy the live show that hasn't been doctored like Kiss Alive. It's pure, unadulterated.
Now,
You're there in the theater.
why would you mention that? Like,
Why
why
would I
would you?
mention Kiss Alive? Because it's the poster child of live that isn't. That's why.
Well, exactly, exactly. And I mean, like, well, and I mean, Freddie Mercury said too when they perform live, he says, th those songs that Queen did could be performed with him just sitting at the piano, but they wouldn't have the same effect as
Right.
if the songs were performed just exactly as they were on the album. If you want to do that, then just stay home and listen to the record.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
I mean, yeah. Oh my God. But please continue.
So
But
I'll go back. So
yes, please
for
go
the for
back.
the so two of the other four new pieces are purely percussion.
Yeah.
One is one is called Banshee Legs Bell Hassle, which is basically just them playing on you know, different electronic pads with, drum sounds that kind of sound like bells with
Yeah.
different pitches and different timbres and whatnot. And it's this wonderful little, you know, minute 45-second piece
Yeah.
that is, very, very constructed. It's got a little, excuse me, a little room for improvisation here and there, but
Yeah.
it's, a very tight constructed piece.
Well,
The other piece called the Hellhounds of Krim is this ferocious, it's all drums. It's all toms and snares and cymbal crashes, and it's in five, and it's all three drummers interlocking and interweaving. And apparently the way to hear this tune was to actually see it live,
yeah.
because there were lots of times where the motion would just kind of move across the stage like in a wave and kind of crash back and forth. um,
Yeah.
there is a there is a three disc, a 4 disc set, that came out from their tour in Japan from 2015, which is basically called Monkey Mind. And
Don't do this to me,
that,
Jim.
excuse me,
Don't do this to me, Jim. Don't make me go looking for that.
you're gonna have to because it's live freaking Crimson of this band,
Okay.
and it's,
All right.
it's what they do.
Oh, oh, okay. In
That
Japan,
voodoo
you
that
said?
they do so well in
Okay.
Japan, yes.
Okay.
So, no women running around tossing off their t-shirts yelling Freebird. So,
No, no, definitely not. Well, would this show be on the website, on the DGM Live website?
I think you can buy the box set from DGM
Oh,
or from Burning Shed.
okay.
The Yeah, the shows, the so let's rewind just a little bit
Sorry.
here.
Yeah, yeah. We're getting
So
ahead of ourselves.
these I'm gonna get whiplash. So these
Good.
shows from the third and the fourth are warts and all, and we'll talk about, some of the warts in more detail in a
Yeah.
minute.
Yeah.
The Monkey Mind performance, it's from the 2015 shows, so it's the following year,
Yeah.
and they're cherry picking performances from, different nights and different halls to kind of put together, a best of. And the video is a little bit of that as well,
Yeah.
um, but again, it's kind of jaw dropping to watch. Not as amazing as Meltdown, which was the 2017 show from Mexico City. But that's a whole nother story, whole nother year. Um, so
I will say one thing and then I will shut up, I promise. Um, because you're doing a fantastic job talking
well,
about
thank you.
you're welcome. Um, what I noticed, what I usually like, what, let me start again, rewind. What I've noticed with these performances, I use the term, and Mercury uses this term as well, shade and light, meaning
Yeah.
there's a lot of use of shade and light. Shade for me is the more uh, quiet, tranquil sections of the show. Light is when they just come out and just go for it, like, guns a-blazing kind of a thing. And they just
Oh
grab you
yeah.
by the throat and they don't let you go until they're ready to let you go. Like you're gonna listen to this. This is how we're gonna present this to you, and we're gonna ram it down your throat musically, and you're gonna enjoy it. There's a lot of that going on,
Yeah.
but what I mean is instead of a band, like when a band does a live album, they usually do like a bit of an acoustic set for a good, say, 2 or 3 or 4 songs, maybe 2 or 3 songs, and then they go back
Hmm.
into the electric. With these performances, they do one song that's, maybe sort of introspective, sort of very quiet, contemplative kind of thing, and then they go back into, like schizoid. Like,
Yes.
oh, they just ram it in, like ram it at you, like you've got like no mercy is shown, right?
Or it's even within the same song. You talk about your shade and your light. I mean, a
Yeah,
song like The Letters,
yeah.
very tranquil, and then all of a sudden,
Boom.
it's like blinding light of what
You're
they're
kicked in
doing.
the
So
ass. Like it's just like,
yeah.
like wake up. It's like
Ex-
we're not done yet, kind of a thing, and just
right.
hold on. that's the kind of that's the message I'm getting with these performances. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
but that's just my 10 cents put in, but please continue.
Well, another example of the shade that you're talking about is kind of the fifth new piece that I was remiss in talking about, which is called Interlude, which is this little kind of melody that Fripp came up with that ends up being performed, mostly on flutes by Collins and Jasix. Um,
Yeah,
and it's just this wonderful little piece that's mostly bass and the flutes, and Fripp might do some, soundscape guitar work over the top of it, or maybe some
exactly.
dissonant chordal work. Um,
Yeah,
so those are all the new pieces. And then kind of the stalwarts, things that have been performed fairly regularly. You've got, level five, talking drum, Larks 2, construction of light, vroom, and the coda that goes with that, and then red. So you've got a tight 20 track show here that really runs the gamut of pretty much the entire history of Crim. The only songs that aren't really covered in this tour are some of the 80s material. But
mm,
otherwise, you're getting every little facet just, unfolded and placed in your lovely little lap.
yeah, yeah, and yeah, it does run the gamut of emotions in terms of the musicality and the just the tight precision of the playing that's going on here.
It's
Um,
ridiculous.
oh my God. And I mean, there's a lot of what I've noticed too, there's a lot of twinning of sax and guitar doing the same
Yeah.
lines together and building just ascending lines, like building tension, right?
Hmm.
Within the song. And the audience is just like you can just imagine them sitting like on the edge of their seat, you know what I mean? Like, and then when you don't expect it, the song comes to a dead stop, like a cold stop, and the audience just goes nuts for
Yeah,
this.
well,
And
the experience of seeing Beat for me
yeah,
last September was much like that. It's like I never thought I'd see this stuff performed live, and yet here's Baloo and Levin with Steve Vai and Danny Carey. Thank you very much,
yeah,
pulling this stuff off. I
yeah.
can imagine these same feelings going through an audience member, you know, taking in Creme during this tour because it's just like, you kidding me? Sailor's Tale? People have been salivating for that for decades. And there's Fripp with his big banjo chords and just going to town shredding wallpaper at 7 miles.
Well,
It's
that's
just
just it.
astounding.
Well, that's just it. And like you don't expect Robert Fripp to be, when you think of him now, you don't think of him to be on stage shredding guitar and or doing these massive chords that come in, right?
Yeah,
But he smokes on guitar, like he just goes to town on that
yeah,
stuff. And but it, it's not like they all, how can I put this? It's not like they don't keep up with one another. They're well oiled at this point. They're just like going for it, right? And
yeah,
it's not like they're holding on, they're like holding on for dear life. Like they're all in it together and they're just going for it and having fun with it. That's what you can tell too, is they're having fun with these performances.
oh yeah.
If there's anything that you would improve with these two performances, what would it be if there are anything, if there is anything?
I I it's a gift. The whole thing was just an absolute gift of this music that's just so full of shadow and light, like you were saying. So I can't think of what to do to improve. Now, if this was like the only tour they ever did, I could kind of grouse here and there. But in my mind, I know what they built upon for each subsequent year through 2019.
Yeah.
And because again, it was like this show, the night of the third is about an hour and like 58 minutes. And I think the show on the fourth is 2 hours and 8 minutes. When they were playing in Mexico City in like 2017, 2018, they were playing 3.5 hours. I mean, talk
Say what?
about,
You
they were, yeah,
serious?
Yeah, there's some shows that were like 3.5 hours, like Springsteen level shows.
My God. Okay.
So these guys were definitely into it and definitely enjoying what they were doing. So that yeah, the the love of what they're doing comes through, or else, good Lord, how could they have lasted that long
Yeah.
playing? Again, this isn't Kiss.
No.
This is King Crimson. This is stuff that's like, you can't keep track of all the how often the time meter is shifting in these songs.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. And I should mention too, Bill Rieflin, um,
Yeah,
on percussion, recently, after the release of the documentary of In the Court of the Crimson King, passed away from cancer. So
yeah,
um, we should mention that. And he, according to Robert Fripp, was an integral part of the live shows that they did. And
yeah,
he performed knowing his diagnosis and gave everything he had to these performances. And by the way,
absolutely.
ladies and gentlemen, you really should watch the documentary of In the Court of the Crimson King. It is an eye opener. I mean, um, well, you know what? I'll screw it. I'm gonna give a little soundbite. Um,
Please.
they did interviews with Adrian Belew, and he was giving all sorts of compliments to Robert Fripp, and how well they worked together as a team in the 80s incarnation of Crimson. And then Robert Fripp comes back and says that he believed that Adrian Belew did not work well in an ensemble situation.
And
And
and I have complete empathy with that view, and we can talk about that if you like.
when the interviewer went back to Belew and said that, the look on Adrian Belew's face was, Robert said that about me? Like he was just floored.
Hmm.
I don't think he should have said it on camera, like to Belew on camera,
Hmm.
but yeah, talk about backbiting and ass kicking.
Yeah, well,
There, there's
when
drama.
this yeah,
There's
there is
drama.
drama definitely. And the book goes into even more drama. But basically this whole vision of Crim that ended up touring in 2014,
Yeah.
Robert had a vision, and he had a vision not only of the configuration of the three drummers in front and whatnot, but he also knew who was going to be in every chair. And he is on record of saying if someone said no, I don't want to do it, he would have just canceled the whole thing. It had to be those people doing this thing. And he's right. Having seen Belew, I've only seen King Crimson as fronted by Adrian Belew. And Adrian has this effervescence and showmanship and rapport with the audience that is naturally like a front man.
Okay.
And this Crimson, not only does it have the precision of an orchestra, but it's almost like an orchestral performance. They're all in suits. There's no talking with the audience. It's just show up, crack your knuckles, rosin up your bows, and go for it. And that's kind of what they're doing. And he just never saw Adrian fitting in with that kind of an ensemble
Okay.
because he's such a just like I said, like an effervescent leader in his own right. It'd be if you were to cage that energy, it would just be like something's wrong.
Well, I'll take, and that's fine. I mean, obviously you know Crimson better than I do, in terms of, the musicality and what they're able to do live. What I'm saying is the shock on Baloo's face
Yeah,
when that came out, I just thought, on a little side note, I thought, why did the interviewer do that? Why did he have to do that on camera? And why did he keep it in the film? Like,
yeah.
or and I'm sure, you know what? I'm sure, a little side note, I'm sure Fripp knew what was going on. I'm sure he had total autonomy as to what was going to be put in, what was going to be kept out. And I'm sure he knew that he wanted that in. Um, that's a little bit, that's a kick in the ass for anyone to hear that. Um,
Hmm.
it's like your musical hero telling you that you're full of crap, you know,
Yeah.
in that respect. But like you said, Robert Fripp for this incarnation of Crimson knew exactly what he wanted in terms of the musicians that he wanted to be in this version of Crimson, and what each musician could bring to the fold, to the table.
Yes.
And he got exactly, obviously, what he wanted.
And Bill Rieflin, you were talking about him. Not
Definitely.
only does he have the skills on drums and keyboard, but I guess there was also this sort of, I don't know, call it a presence, call it just an effect he has on people that to him, it was really like a glue that held everything together. Kirk
Hmm.
was saying there's a reason why Bill Rieflin is dead center stage because he acts like the hub of a wheel. And, he's kind of able to communicate with everyone around him and sort of have this, goodwill and focus that sort of emanates from him. So,
Hmm.
he's there on purpose.
Hmm. No, I agree. I see that. I agree with that. I agree with that. So, shall we continue with?
Well, we're kind of at the conclusion, I think. The only thing that I can say is that if folks have the experience of live at the Orpheum as sort of, the only thing they know about 2014 Crim, time to reevaluate yourself because these shows are just, so much better. They're so much better just in terms of quantity. They're so much better just in terms of quality. um, you can get these in several ways. You can purchase the shows and download the tracks off DGM Live. In
Yeah.
the US, the MP3s of the show are like $10. Flax for the show, I think, are 15 or so,
Yes.
US dollars. There's nugs.net, which is a website that streams bands, that just run the gamut. Everything from, Allman Brothers tribute bands to Fish to Widespread Panic to now King Crimson. They're streaming all these 2014 shows,
Mhm.
and Robert has said that they're going to add more shows um, to that streaming service. So not only will you be seeing stuff from 2015 and on eventually, but it sounds like they're going to take what's in their catalog and their library already and slowly begin to move it over to Nugs as well, so people can stream the show from there.
Um,
Um, the last thing I'll say is that if you're kind of a purist and you don't do downloads and you want to do the CDs and whatnot, my understanding is that they are going to compile kind of a best of from their New York shows. I think it was from Best Buy Theater. It was in downtown Manhattan, and they're going to do like a two CD set that basically will give you the complete, 2014 Crim live. And my understanding is that that's going to come out sometime in 2025, but I'm not sure yet on what the date is.
okay, and I will be putting the links to these sites, dgmlive.com and Nugs, and in the description below, so you guys out there can download them. And for what you get in terms of the music, pretty inexpensive if you think about it. I paid 29.99 Canadian for it with the rate of exchange.
For the
So
two shows.
yeah, for the two shows. So it's pretty inexpensive, right? So
Yeah.
here's a $65,000 question to you, my good sir. Uh, I think we've already established that the Orpheum show is but a drop in the bucket. And it's like,
Yes.
why even bother to release it if you're only gonna really only have the 6 songs? Between the October 3rd and the October 4th show, which one would you officially release?
Oh, I would go for the fourth. Um, for a couple of reasons. One, it's a longer show. So it's got one more track than it does the night prior. The other thing that's different about this October 4th show than the third is that they were dealing with some technical gremlins on the fourth. And there are periods in the show where like you're hearing Pat Mastelotto throw samples of Don Pardo saying, "We're now experiencing technical difficulties." And there's this thing in there about someone interviewing Fripp. And I don't know if it's the actual recording or if Mastelotto messed with it. And it's this guy just going, uh, uh, it's like really
Yeah.
tripping over his tongue, trying to, get his words out to Fripp. And the audience is just busting up.
Yeah. So basically, with the October 4th shows, ladies and gentlemen, you got the additional track, but you also got the concert warts and all. And
Yes. And another warts and all aspect of it is that in the beginning of Sailor's Tale, which starts off with this, kind of ride cymbal thing, and then it goes into this bass line of don 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 don.
yes,
When they apparently Tony Levin's bass took a dump right as he was going to play that. And so you get this kind of extended drum intro. It's like the drummers are like, okay, I guess we'll just have to make this thing work. And they start just doing all these little fills and figures between the three of them until
until
Levin can switch basses and then, start in
start.
with the
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's a longer extended jam mix of Sailor's Tale, live and improvised.
Well, there you go. There you go.
And I love that stuff about live concerts. When something unexpected happens, most of the time that's just a joyful thing that lodges into the memory of the attendee because it's like, okay, here's something that they wouldn't include in the studio. Here's something that you see them adapt and sort of manage and
Yeah.
fly with on their own to make the show work.
Yeah.
And those are the things that make a memory. So the fourth is an easy recommendation over the third.
There you go. No, I would agree. I would agree. I've always said you cannot, in my very humble opinion, you cannot get the full experience of a concert if on a single disc. It just doesn't work that way. You can get obviously the highlights, but who the hell wants the highlights? If you're a fan of a band, of a certain band, you want the full experience, the full show.
Exactly.
So I understand that. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Another one in the books in the 2014 quarter of the Crimson King Crimson. I'm just gonna say Crimson King, and
Can
it's
work.
warts and all, ladies and gentlemen. Uh, Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to get these shows and download them and listen to them, they're very inexpensive. I will put the links below so that you can access them through dgmlive.com and through the other sources. You know, again, I've learned something new again about King Crimson. And again, for me, music has always been about learning something new and experiencing something different. And if you want to go on a trip, on a musical trip, these are the shows for you. So please check
Oh
them out.
yeah.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, check them out. Listen.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So please check them out and let us know what you think of the shows from the Warfield Theatre in the comments below. And Jim and I are going to be back with more show ideas, and we're cooking some stuff up now. We're working on our top five albums of Miles Davis. I'm going to start working on that this weekend, actually. I've got my albums in mind. I'm just going to put them down on a list and get them going. And Bill Schuster and Ken Cheshire are joining in on that episode. We have another episode of Buried Treasures coming up, I believe, at some point. And we also have another set of episodes of Is This a Masterpiece? So, and that's going to be really good. That's going to cover the gamut of genres like you would not believe.
We're gonna offend all kinds of people.
Oh, I know, but it's going to be fun. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, for Jim Bricker, I'm Armando Venditti. Thank you for joining us on this interesting, confusing episode. All right, we'll see you soon with more shows. Okay, please look after yourselves and one another. Bye for now.